Nice to see you again, dear friends. With you as always, your Poppy Nap. I found a lot of options for new bosses that we might see already in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, and so today I'm offering you to talk together about them. Be sure to watch this video to the end to find out about all the leaks and spoilers about the new chapter. Well, here we go. The first one I'd like to tell you about is Piggy, who looks like a cute little piggy, but we all know that this piggy is a bloodthirsty monster who doesn't even spare his friends from Smiling Critters, Bubba Fant, and Crafty Corn to prove it. So here I am thinking that in Chapter 4, we will be able to see a huge version of Piggy that will be very bloodthirsty. Apparently his huge size is due to the fact that he ate smaller monsters and thus reached this size. I have seen a video in which Piggy is chasing our character. I can only assume that he is chasing in order to eat him, but I think that Piggy expects the same fate as the other bosses of the game. Namely, he will simply fall into the hands of Prototype after his death and will bring his plan closer to fulfillment. The next character we might see as a boss in Chapter 4 might be KickinChicken. From his cardboard in the 3rd chapter, we learn that he wants to escape from Playcare, because he can no longer stand all these horrors that are happening here. But what if he succeeded and we can see him in the 4th chapter? Most likely he will also be big, and I dare say he will not be very kind to us, so we'll have to hide from him. I also came across an excerpt that shows KickinChicken chasing after our character, as a result of which KickinChicken will die and his body will be taken away by Prototype, as it happened with bosses from other chapters. There is also a possibility that we will see KickinChicken in conjunction with his brother Rocky, and maybe they will be the key figures in Chapter 4. Maybe from them we can find out what really happened to all the orphans in Playcare, and also find out what happened to the rest of the Smiling Critters. Another possible newcomer we should expect to see in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 is likely to be Mr. Delight. Yes. That's the husband of the same Miss Delight from Chapter 3 who went crazy and killed all of her sisters. But if Miss Delight was a negative character who wanted to kill us, then her husband Mr. Delight is different, and he will most likely be our main helper in the 4th chapter. Now it's time to talk about one of the most anticipated characters we haven't seen yet, and I'm talking about the very cute dinosaur Bron. Many people were sure that Bron would appear in Chapter 3, because in the first teaser trailer after the severed body of Mommy Longlegs, we were shown Bron's head. But as we already know, the main antagonist of Chapter 3 is not Bron at all, and I'm sure Bron is the most desirable character we've seen so far, and it's probably time to tell us more about this dinosaur, especially since his life story in Playtime Co. is very fascinating, and it would be interesting to know how it will affect Bron in the future. In case you don't know, Thomas Clark, a 59-year-old full-time employee of Playtime Co., was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. After receiving the diagnosis, he willingly volunteered to be part of the Bigger Bodies experiment. Scientists placed his organs, eyes, and brain inside a Bron toy in what became known as the 1199 experiment. He was severely disoriented and did not know where he was or what had happened to him. When 1199 was introduced to the other experiments, they immediately realized that he was not an orphan forced to be an experimenter. As a result, Boxy Boo almost completely ate his vocal cords and thyroid gland before the research team intervened to stop the experiments from killing Bron. It took 12 hours of surgery to stabilize Bron's condition. He was then placed in solitary confinement to protect him from further experiments. And since we've already talked about Boxy Boo, I think it's time to give this character some attention, because he, like Bron, is the monster that a lot of people want to see in the new chapter. Boxy Boo was one of the characters we see on that very ominous tape, The Hour of Joy. Boxy Boo is one of the main monsters whose death we haven't seen yet. Yes, in the previous versions of the game we saw the death of characters like Huggy Waggy, Mommy Longlegs, and of course the main character of the 3rd part of Poppy Playtime, CatNap, and we shouldn't forget his former friends from Smiling Critters who died at his hands. So for now, Boxy Boo is one of the few surviving characters we haven't seen yet, so we can expect him to appear in all likelihood. My opinion about Boxy Boo is that I would be happy to see him in the new version of the game, if only the developers could introduce him into the story and make his existence in the game as interesting as possible. And now let's talk about less obvious options, namely that our new hero will be CatNap. Despite everything, we cannot exclude the possibility that we will be introduced to the already deceased CatNap. Of course, he will not be one of the main villains as it was in the 3rd chapter, but as a secondary character, he is ideal. We all know that the Prototype killed CatNap, but this amazingly horrible cat is so well liked that I think it is necessary to make him a reference in the new chapter. But how will that happen? I'm sure that Chapter 4 will reveal the biggest secret of the Playtime Corporation, and we'll finally find out who the Prototype is. But it will be at the end. But before that, we will fight with some bosses in the window, or somewhere else we will see CatNap, who will help us like in the 3rd chapter. but I think everyone understands that this help will not be for the sake of our salvation, but just so that we can finally meet the prototype. That would be very interesting. And talking about CatNap, where can we get away from such a character as Prototype? And you will tell me that we have seen him in the past versions of the game. In the first chapter, he was in the form of a reference on the tape. In the second part of the game, he stole the remains of Mommy Longlegs. And in the third part, he was the main villain who obeyed CatNap and forced all the others to do the same. Maybe in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, we will see him in full form, and we will see what the sacrifices of all the monsters led to. Of course, there is a theory that Prototype is actually kind and wanted to free all the monsters from the abuse of the Poppy Factory workers, but then how can we explain the murder of his main subordinate by CatNap? Besides the above-mentioned characters, the developers of Mob Entertainment can add completely new monsters that we have never seen before, as for example, in the third chapter they added Miss Delight, and maybe it will be one of the old forgotten characters that we could see in the form of a drawing or a toy. We can only wait for the release of the game trailer of the new part of the game to dispel all our assumptions. I have already mentioned the long-legged family several times. Of all of them, we have seen only Mommy Longlegs, but the rest of the family members in the previous parts of the game we did not have a chance to see. Even though we know that the Prototype took Mommy Longlegs' body at the end of Poppy Playtime Chapter 2, I'm sure he's doing it for a reason. Maybe his main goal in life is to resurrect all these monsters or reincarnate them into more powerful characters. And if that's the case, I'm sure that Mommy Longlegs will appear as a supporting character in the new chapter. Well, Mommy Longlegs isn't the only member of her family. Baby Longlegs may also appear in the new chapter, and considering the fact that we haven't seen him yet, I'm sure his appearance is almost certain. But as what kind of character? Whether he'll be positive or negative is hard to say. On the one hand, his mother died because of us, but there is also a Prototype who took her body and who knows what he is doing with it. However, I'm more confident that Baby Longlegs will be on the side of the Prototype, because as we know, the Prototype is very good at subduing monsters, and it's very easy for a grief-stricken Baby Longlegs to make Baby Longlegs think that we killed his beloved mother. I think if he does appear, we will see him closer to the end of the fourth chapter, maybe even before we meet the Prototype himself. Olly. I'm sure his role in the Poppy Playtime universe is not finished yet, because we still don't know what he looks like and who he is. Maybe he's the famous Bron, or maybe he's just one of the Prototype's assistants. To be honest, I would really like to see the real face of this character and finally tell us what his plans are. After all, judging by the conversation with Poppy, it's easy to understand that she knows him, which means that in the new chapter, we'll most likely be introduced to Olly as Poppy's assistant at Playtime Corporation. We all remember how the third chapter ended, and it would be logical for the fourth chapter to start from the same place. And I think that after we go upstairs again, we will see the wounded body of Kissy Missy and the silhouette of the monster that did this to her. But the reason why this monster didn't manage to kill Kissy completely is our mysterious guy Olly, who will appear at the most important moment. The next character didn't appear anywhere. He's really cut. He was cut before he could even be added. This character is Psydog. He was going to be added. At first he was in the form of a robot dog, but then apparently the developers thought they already had one robot and a second one wouldn't fit into the game, so they decided to cut him out. Another rumor is that Psydog is the Prototype for Love Dog. We couldn't find this dog even in the warehouse with rejected toys. Maybe it was hidden somewhere in the textures or on some pictures or tapes, but we couldn't find it. However, some fans managed to find a Love Dog model, so I assume that Love Dog and Psydog are the same character. Just the developers decided to revise the character. So, which of the new bosses do you expect to see the most? Share your opinion in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and also be sure to write your options. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also put a like on this video. Well, that's it for today. See you soon. Bye-bye.